Hello, we did our project on musical appropriation in Paradise Lost, and this is just a short introduction from Symphony X.
And this is the song Awake and Arise by Grant Hart's album The Argument. We hope that you similarly awake and arise to our own presentation through listening to it.
In musical appropriation for Paradise Lost, there are two main kind of arguments and appropriation types that are made. One being with the devil and Satan and anger, which is usually associated with rock music. And there's also the tragedy of Eve's downfall, which is associated with the sadder songs and more alternative music. Here are examples of each. They're color-coded, red being the more angry representations of the devil, and the blue being sadder, the downfall of Eve type songs.
So the first music we looked at was The Argument by Grant Hart. This is the track list. There are 20 songs, and each of them kind of go along with, there's not 12, but there are, they go along with the books of Paradise Lost in a chronological order. And it's an album, and Grant Hart, the singer, had a tragic life. Right before he wrote the album, both his mom and his dad died back to back, and then shortly after, his house burned down in a fire. So he was in a very negative state when he wrote this book, and so therefore there's a lot more emphasis on the fall and a lot of negative characteristics that are represented in Paradise Lost. All the songs. Some people say that The Argument is based off of the title song, The Argument, which is about the fight between Adam and Eve when Eve offers Adam the apple. But I like to think of it too as like the arguments that precede every book in Paradise Lost, that give like a short little description, kind of like the songs do. These songs can stand on their own, but I think that they're personally better together because some of them are very different. There are a lot of different genres and different types of songs represented in this album. For example, the song we heard at the beginning, Awake or Rise, is very like rocky and like very like earthy. And If We Have the Will, it's more of a militaristic march kind of sound. In War in Heaven, it's kind of alternative and like psychedelic, and you hear a lot of like cymbals, and it's very indie. And finally, my personal favorite song, Underneath the Apple Tree, it's more of a folky song. You can hear like the plucking of the strings, and altogether they all mesh in a strange and unique way to bring out lots of different types of themes and styles in Paradise Lost. So now we're going to listen to a little bit of Underneath the Apple Tree, my personal favorite song from the album. Okay, also I think it's very cool that music appropriations in general are a very broad way to appropriate especially complex poetry like Paradise Lost, because you do not need an English literature degree to enjoy it. Anyone, whether you're literate or not, can enjoy the music that Paradise Lost, or that Grant Hart's album gives to listeners about Paradise Lost without having to read the whole poem. You get a lot of the ideas and concepts through music. So now I'm going to talk about how it's appropriated. I'm kind of going to come to terms with it. It's first, I think it should be noted that there is a difference between appropriation and adaptation. Adaptation is where you can like see the themes and there's some representation shown in the new art, but appropriations can stand on their own and they bring one work to a new level and can stand on their own from there. So I think that this album is a representation, or is an appropriation of Paradise Lost instead of an adaptation. Go back. So one in the lyrics, you can see in this first one by Satan in the song Awake Arise we heard earlier, there are direct pulls from Paradise Lost, which is borrowing. And you can see it says Awake Arise or Be Forever Fall, and that's a direct quote from Paradise Lost. Also, you can see in the Sun, in the song Glorious, there is illustrating of characters that it's a new way of interpreting it from Paradise Lost, but also kind of the same. So like in Paradise Lost, the Sun is viewed as, he is viewed negatively at the beginning by some people, but also he transforms and kind of becomes a character that is going to come like save people. So there's like a little there's conflict between that in Paradise Lost, but in Grant Hart's album he is seen as a tyrannical figure completely. You see it says the thunder god is here to fight. He is just not viewed well. Continue next slide. Next you can see in the tone there's extending. You can read things, but you can read things in books, but then like really when you like listen to it, it's just like taken to a new level. You hear different tones even better. Next in the themes, there's good versus evil, order versus chaos, temptation versus guilt, and this is again extending. These themes are represented in Paradise Lost, but in the song they're taken to a new level with more evil and more chaos and more temptation shown than in the book. Okay. Next one. Now scholarly discussions. It's important to note that while there's not a lot of sources on music appropriations to Paradise Lost because it's a relatively uncharted field, all of the sources that I read and talked about say that music is accessible to all, which is really what I talked about earlier about you don't need a degree to listen to music. That's a really cool thing. Also, Milton really loved music. This is from a source by Seth Herbst that says Milton had greater trust in music than in poetry as an artistic medium worthy of God, showing he just had Milton loved music, and therefore people that read Milton also are going to have the same appreciation for music. Countering. Okay, so this album talks a lot about the heroism of Satan and if we have the will, but I personally disagree with this, and I think that while Satan can be seen as a negative character, I really believe that he also has like points of good, like in Song with Will. Also, one thing I do agree with is that there's no sympathy for Eve in all of this album. Grant Hart really just does not like Eve and doesn't give her any sympathy, and the scholars talk about that in the articles. So now. This is not the only rock song where Allure for Satan is found. Also, it's found in Sympathy for the Devil.
So, Sympathy for the Devil was a song that came out around 1968 during the times of the Vietnam War. And as you can kind of hear, there's that intro jungle music, and the idea behind the song is to be chaotic, to represent the devil, to accept his point of view and join that perspective. And from that fear of evil, of the unknown, that this song kind of represents, it's kind of like in the Vietnam War has brought to America, kind of is taken back and dissolved. So that was the goal and intention behind the song. So this is directly correlating to Paradise Lost in that we should try to understand both good and evil, and that is a major theme in Sympathy for the Devil, along with Satan's deception, understanding and good through knowing evil, appearance versus reality, humanity's sin, eternal providence, and justification of God in being someone that a deity that we should respect and love and not an oppressor, which we can learn through the lyrical analysis of the song. So here are the lyrics for the song, and as you can see, all these circles are representations of how the song emulates Paradise Lost and reflects kind of the beliefs that Milton had. It does talk a lot more on like humanity's history and being evil and all the bad things that have happened, sort of to tie into the devil and his role in that, and So we do stay back and understand that he is evil, and we should respect his perspective, but not necessarily join it. And it does go on, I will discuss this further, but it talks about how there's evil in all of us, whereas Paradise Lost differed from that perspective because the blame was placed on Eve and Eve alone. A more musical analysis of the song reveals several things. First off, the introduction that you heard, being the jungle introduction, kind of has this chaotic feel to it and makes us realize what a savage world we live in, and that has been brought about by the devil in what Paradise Lost has taught us. There's an increase in tempo throughout the entire song, which sort of emulates Paradise Lost in that as the poem goes on, more and more is actually happening, and more action occurs. But the idea behind it is there's kind of something lurking, just as the devil was lurking in the tree and lurking around paradise. That increase in tempo is as a depiction of like a prowling creature. The song is barely repetitive, which again goes back to the chaos that Milton kind of refers to, and the devil must go through to get to Eden. And as the song ends, you can hear it fading into the distance, but not necessarily going away. The way the scholars Herbie Bow put it, it kind of moves to another town, as in the devil moving on to get his next victim. The popular conversation, there are many different perspectives on the song from scholars. There's a huge downfall, negative attitude toward the song for the cult following that it's sort of gained, with the lead singer Mick Jagger kind of trying to represent the devil and being the devil, and even he sort of has got carried away with it, and people have been drawn to that, which scholars talk about and refer to as a negative element of the song and not the intention of what it was trying to do when appropriating Paradise Lost. There's also an interesting perspective in that God being the oppressor is not what Paradise Lost is trying to tell us, and this song does reveal Satan's true nature, and so there is a good scholarly conversation on God being, all powerful, yet respectful of our wishes and our free will, and overall caring and loving. And lastly, even bloggers think that the perspective of seeing things through the eyes of the devil is very interesting, and that is directly from Paradise Lost, trying to understand the evil as well as the good. And the song does have many elements that do counter Milton, so I would like to draw upon that kind of point. It does, in many regards, go too far in appropriating Paradise Lost and trying to show the perspective and ideas of the devil. And you can see in these lyrics, please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. It's rather fond of the devil and tries to make us like jealous and want to be part of that kind of culture. But it also shows an element that we don't see in Paradise Lost, in that the devil is extremely powerful, whereas in Paradise Lost, he was more afraid of God's wrath, and thus we can see, he wants to ruin everything. We can see that true anger. It's more of a societal understanding versus Paradise Lost, Satan being kind of a manipulator and wanting to bring about the downfall of God and his creations, in trying to overthrow him. So here are our works cited pages, and that is our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.